Hi, my name is Emel Küçük, and in this poster I present research into the third visual pathway. Previously, the human visual system was thought to process visual information through two functionally distinct pathways. The ventral pathway projects from the primary visual cortex into the inferior temporal cortex, and it helps identify what an object is. The dorsal pathway projects from the primary visual cortex into a motion-selective brain region, V5, where it then projects into the posterior parietal cortex. The dorsal pathway helps in understanding where objects are and how to interact with them. So recently, a third pathway has been proposed, specializing in interpreting socially relevant information, such as facial and body movements. This third pathway projects from the primary visual cortex via V5 into the superior temporal sulcus. The aim of this study was to investigate whether different categories of moving stimuli are processed differently across the visual pathways. We predicted that moving biological stimuli, faces and bodies, would be preferentially processed along this third pathway. In the MRI scanner, 30 participants passively watched dynamic or static clips of faces, bodies, scenes, objects, or scrambled objects. Dynamic and static stimuli were identical and both 3 seconds long, except dynamic stimuli were a continuous moving presentation, whereas static stimuli were a presentation of 3 still images taken from the beginning, middle, and end of each movie clip. From the results, it seems that the way the brain processes moving and static stimuli differs depending on the category of the stimulus. Figure 3 shows the results of a two-way ANOVA between motion and stimulus category. Significant interactions were found in various brain regions across all three pathways. These include the inferior temporal cortex, which is part of the ventral pathway, the posterior parietal cortex, part of the dorsal pathway, and the right superior temporal sulcus, which is part of the third pathway. The main effects for each category for the moving and static stimuli are shown in figures 4 and 5 respectively. These unpack which stimuli were driving the interactions. Essentially, we see that moving bodies and objects engage the dorsal pathway, and as predicted, moving bodies and faces engage the third pathway. We also see that all 4 categories engage the ventral pathway, consistent with its function of visual recognition. For the static condition, we see that static faces and bodies engage the right SDS, but there was no significant neural activity in the dorsal pathway, suggesting that the dorsal pathway preferentially processes moving stimuli. Results support the hypothesis and also suggest that there's a functional division between biological and non-biological stimuli across the dorsal and third pathway. Additionally, regions of interest analyses showed that moving stimuli produce more robust neural responses, so perhaps future studies should consider the use of dynamic stimuli to achieve robust functional localization. To extend these findings, a study I am currently conducting explores the involvement of the third pathway in social interaction perception.